In this video, I'm going to talk about the appearance panel. You might remember it, we placed it here on the right side in an earlier chapter, and I promise to you that it's going to be a very useful panel. That's exactly what I'm going to prove to you this time. So at first, it might seem like an unnecessary duplication of all the settings that you have from the options bar, but actually the appearance panel can do a lot more than that. Let's just try it with a simple shape. So I'm going to create a square just to start with. And you will see here in the appearance panel that we have the fill color available, which we can change easily. And we can also apply a stroke color, just like that, and also increase the size of it. Let me move this shape closer so we can keep an eye on both of these parts at the same time. That's not much new because we've already been able to do this before. But what's the whole point of the appearance panel is that you can have multiple strokes and fills on the same shape. And that's when it becomes important to keep an eye on this panel. So let's give it quickly a second stroke. That's the option here at the bottom. Add new stroke, so the first icon there, and as soon as I change the color and change the size of it, we should be able to see both strokes. Why don't I see the other stroke right now? Well, it is because there is an order between these attributes, and whatever is on top is closest to you. So if I move this one, which is a bigger stroke, underneath the other one, we should be able to see both of them at the same time. Let me just make this even bigger and maybe change the color of it to something that's obviously different. So now if we have a look at this shape, we can see that we have two strokes and one fill color on it. I would be able to continue doing the same thing. Again, I'm going to create another stroke, maybe set this one up to white, and let's just reduce the size of it slightly. So now we actually have three strokes and one fill. But we could even have multiple fills. So let me select the fill and click on this new fill icon here at the bottom. That will add an additional fill color. And why not use a gradient? Let's use this black and white gradient. And while we are at it, I would like to show you also that you can change not only what swatch you want to use on a fill color or on a stroke, but also you can amend the opacity of it. So if you click on opacity, you can control how strong that will be, but you can also change the blend mode, and I'm just going to choose multiply, which will blend the gradient, the black and white gradient, onto the color that was used underneath, which is this blue color. So let's just recap. Now we have three strokes and two fills. The best thing about the appearance panel is that we can turn these strokes one by one on and off, and also the fill colors can be turned on and off. So all of these attributes are making up the appearance of this object. Every attribute is editable, and you can even change the order of them. So for example, if I want, I can drag this black stroke on top, which then will cover all the other strokes because that's the biggest one. But as soon as I make it smaller, so let me just go down in size, maybe down to 3, then immediately the order of the strokes changed. It is important to remember to keep the object selected on which you are working. If the appearance panel says no selection here on the top, that means you currently don't have anything selected. So it doesn't matter what you change on these values, it won't update on the object. You have to make sure the object selected, and then it should say something else apart from no selection, like path or group, and so on and so forth. Coming back to the second field that I added, when you open up the actual attribute, you can see that it's using a multiply blend mode. Now this is something I just quickly applied, but let me show this once again to you. We have the normal mode, which is the default option. And then we have all these other blend modes here, out of which I most of the time use multiply, which really nicely blends the current colors onto the color underneath. So look at this, if I change the color underneath, that gradient is still going to be visible on top of this. Now once you set up an appearance that you might want to use again on another object, you can save it as a graphic style. what you will find here in this panel. And all you have to do is, while the object is selected, click on this new graphic style icon. That will save it. And then whatever you add, let's just add maybe a star shape, we will be able to apply that graphic style on it straight away, as easily as that. When you look at the graphic styles panel, and let me just drag this out for a bit, just so we can see it better. So looking at this, we will be able to choose a couple of default graphic styles, like that one called Bevel Soft. We can also find Dusk, which is a quite nice one. And then we have also these other graphic styles that are using patterns. That's not all the default options that you can choose from, because here in the libraries, we can find sets of other graphic styles as well. Like, let's try the Illuminate styles and pick one of these. Once you select a style, it will be added into your graphic styles library. And the best thing about them is that once you use a graphic style, you can actually see all those attributes that makes up the appearance here in the appearance panel. So we can find all the fill colors and also all the strokes that they used for this design. It is almost like a way to reverse engineer how they actually created a certain style. Let me switch back to the way we created our style, and let me show you one additional feature. I am going to select the black stroke which is on top, and I will show you another great technique that again is best done through the appearance panel. Here at the bottom we have an FX icon. These are all the effects from which you can choose any, but for now I'm just going to start with a simple one. Under Stylize, I will choose Scribble. This is an Illustrator effect, and once I turn on preview, you will see it already being used here. But let's just increase the variation a bit just so we can see how it works. Maybe the curviness as well, the path overlap, something like that. Increase spacing slightly just so it's more visible. And when I click OK, you will see that now, if I zoom closer, this shape is not the way it used to look, because now that stroke has an effect on it as well. When I open up the stroke attribute, I can see that scribble effect inside. I can turn it off, turn it back on, and I can also click on it to bring up the options that I had. These effects are called dynamic effects or live effects, which means that they can always be changed and updated. You can even swap the effect between the strokes. So if I open all the 3 strokes I have, I can drag this scribble effect onto the red stroke, or again onto the white stroke, and so on and so forth. I could also copy the effect by holding down the Alt key and dragging it over to another attribute. Now I have the same effect on both of these strokes, the black and the red one as well. So now that we know how it works, let's put this to use. And I'm going to create a new graphic style. What I will build is a style that I can use to draw roads. I'm going to just put this star on the side, maybe even out of the artboard. That's what I do sometimes when I want to clear up my artboard, but I'm not sure whether I need an object or not. I just put it on the side. You can of course draw anything outside of your artboard. The only disadvantage of that is that you won't be able to export those elements. But coming back here, I am going to use the line tool and just draw a straight line holding down the shift key. Now I am going to add another stroke, and I will change the stroke color to a darker gray value, something like that. I will also increase the size of that, and then I will change the stroke in the middle to orange. I will also increase the size slightly, and then before I do anything else, let me just move this closer so we can see it better. So once I increase the stroke size, I can now click on the stroke value and choose dashed line. Maybe I reduce the size slightly, and I will also change the gap size to something a little bit less than that, what we can see currently. And also I will reduce the dash size, something like that. Maybe the gap can be a little bit more. Okay, that looks quite good, but let's add another stroke again. So the third stroke value at the bottom, I'm going to increase slightly again, and I will also change the color on it, maybe to red. Or let's just use a brighter gray, something like that. Let's increase it a little bit further up. All right, now we have this design ready, which can be used easily to draw roads, right? So we have 3 strokes only. That's the only thing I did here. We have the center line, we have the stroke, which is the actual concrete, and then we have a pavement or something similar to that. But currently, it's still not really convincing. I mean, I think I can do this even better. So let's just put this here on the side, and let's just add a little bit more finesse or refinement to this. Let's select the stroke at the bottom and increase the size of it. So let's just increase that pavement a bit more. Then I'm going to add another stroke on top of that, and I will make it maybe completely dark or much darker than the previous one. I will keep it the same size, but I'm going to use dashed line on it, and I'm going to remove the gap first of all, and I'm going to increase or actually decrease the dashes. So something very narrow, like 1 point. Then I can add a much longer gap, something like that, and immediately it starts to look like tiles on the sidewalk. Let me reduce the size of the center line a bit, and instead I will also add lines on the sides of the road. For that, I am going to click on New Stroke, and I will increase the size of it close to the size of the actual concrete, like that. I will also remove the dashed line from it, and then I just move it underneath the other stroke. Now all I need to do is to just reduce slightly the size of the actual pavement color, and immediately we have also paint on the edges of the concrete. I can also make the color of this white, and if I want it to be very precise, I could even add another stroke, move it behind this white stroke, and increase the size of that slightly beyond the white stroke. So we have also an extra line there next to it. The line in the middle needs to be slightly brighter than this. So I shift click on the color and increase the brightness of it a bit. Around there, I think that looks a little bit better. And now we can save this as a graphic style. So remember, all you need to do is to save it as a graphic style, which you can do here in this panel, and click on New Graphic Style. Now that is great, it's now saved. So we can even delete this object and the star as well, we don't need them anymore. Let's come back to the artboard and let me show you what I prepared here. I'm going to turn on these 2 layers and voila, there's a little city. Now we just need roads. You have this exercise file so you can build your own streets once you create this same graphic style that I just showed you. And I would recommend to use the following tool. There is a tool here called Pencil tool. The shortcut for it is N. And we are going to learn more about this in the next chapter. But for now, all I want you to do is to draw a line with that tool. Once you have your line, you will be able to apply the graphic style. Just choose the one that we saved, and there you go. There's the street. The good thing about the pencil tool is that it can be set up in a way that you can continue drawing existing shapes. As you can see, I can draw over this road a couple of times until it gets into the direction that I wanted it to work with. So I'm just going to continue drawing it, and there it's going to go through. Then I can start another road, and once again, just choose the graphic style that we used earlier. You can have always turns in the streets, and you can even overlap them on each other, just like that. If you want to make sure that your pencil works the same way as it does on my computer, you just have to double click on it and make sure that you have the edit selected paths and keep selected options enabled. As I said, I will come back to these features later and I will explain it in more detail, but for now, we can have a look at our city that we designed and enjoy how quickly we can continue adding more streets, again just using the graphic style and the pencil tool. Once again, I can just move this slightly away, just like that.